And with that, we are moving on to Dark. What do you have for us?
Okay, I have Akuyaku Tensei Ojisan, which
Yes.
its English is pretty long. I don't know why they translate this, but it's from Bureaucrat to Villainess. Dad's been reincarnated. Don't know why they translate to Dad's been reincarnated. Like I guess Ojisan, but it's like probably could have just said the old man or something because like this is not
Yeah.
like I
I've
mean like
never
from
understood
title it's
title
like why would you
localizers.
call it dad
Yeah.
because he does have
Yeah.
a family but it's not like his family was reincarnated with him like dead
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
exactly.
um
I've never understood title localizers like ever since I literally just like started watching anime, it's like or you read manga or whatever. I'm just like, what are these titles, bro? Yeah.
yeah
Anyways, go on.
yeah so this is a story about a man who in his previous life in modern day Japan um Kenza, Kenzaburo Tondabayashi, a 52-year-old civil servant, in whatever. Classic classic mall. Can't read that. Anyway, all right. So,
Yeah.
Kenzaburo was a civil servant. He was a 52-year-old man. Um, and one day he was hit
It's isekai, yeah.
by he was hit by a truck while saving a child.
Uh-huh.
So this time our protagonist did not get turned into a ghost and learn the spirit gun. Instead, he was isekai'd to make a much worse story. But yeah, anyway, he wakes up in the body of a villainess, one Grace Auburn. And this is the protagonist or antagonist rather, of let's see, does it say what I forget what the name of the game is,
Name of the
but
game.
it's an Otome
Yeah, yeah,
game that his daughter loved and
yeah,
played a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Again, relatively standard premise, I think.
yeah, so pretty
Yeah.
standard. But what's really fun, so realistically, like just to get into it, this series then turns into like him realizing where he is. Um, and the biggest gimmick is his cheat skill. I forget exactly what it is, what the specific phrasing they use is, but it's translated to like elegance, like the elegance transfer or something. And
Okay.
so what happens is his mannerisms uh as a 52-year-old civil servant automatically translate to the proper mannerisms of like an elegant like heiress or whatever you want to call it
Uh-huh.
in this like Otome game, right? So on all his body on autopilot sort of like auto translates the right mannerisms. And that's his
Oh, okay,
entire
okay,
cheat
okay.
skill so far. That's all he could do. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So the fun part about this series is that Kenzaburo is voiced by Kazuhiko Inoue, and he what should we sort by? Let's sort by favorites. You may know him at I guess that would make sense that this would be the top. Kakashi of Naruto.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
but
yeah,
what's
you know what?
fun
Because
is
yeah, is very prolific, like in
yeah,
general. But
very
yeah, he's very
prolific.
most known as Kakashi Sensei.
Yeah, and so his what's fun is he's constantly narrating as Kenzaburo and the internal monologue and dialogue and
Yeah.
like thoughts. They do not delete Kenzaburo for Grace, which is quite nice. There's a
Mm.
lot of like ghost after images of him and stuff like looking on. There's a lot of cuts of him behaving in the like Otome way and stuff like that, or like in his
Does he do
past
like a
life.
more gentle voice like Kakashi, or is he more like a more like stern kind of voice? Like what kind of voice does he do?
He does like a gentler voice, like a more
Okay, okay.
because
Because with
also in
Kakashi,
like
he
his
does like a
prior
very
life,
lax voice. Yeah.
in his prior life too, he was also pretty lax. Like he
Mm.
obviously had the civil servant, like the proper mannerisms and like business mannerisms. But as far as like
Mhm.
the flashbacks to him interacting with his daughter and stuff, he is a much more like relaxed parent. And
Mhm.
also a bit of an old head otaku,
Right,
right?
right.
Like one of the things he first comments on when he realized, he's like, wait a minute. I was like, what the hell? Like I must be before he even realizes, I think, what the game that he's in is and remembers, he realizes like, wait, I must be the Villainess. He's like, it's all coming back to me now, like, oh, I have drills, like classic Villainous thing, like
Oh, okay, okay.
Gala
So
oh
you
no,
like
that's what it was.
he's in the know. He's
It's
in the
him.
know.
Yeah, it's him. He's remembering his daughter playing it, and that was his
Uh-huh.
first comment, was like, "Oh, this must be the Villainess, like she's got drill hair." And then he's like, "Yeah,
Right,
like
right,
this has
right.
been a staple since like even like I forget what the other series he names, but he names like Glass Mask." And
Uh-huh.
his daughter's just like, "Dad, I don't know what these series you're talking about are. I'm young and vivacious, and I like new
Yeah,
things."
exactly.
So like that kind of is where he's pulling a lot of his knowledge about like the villainous behavior from.
Right, right, right.
But one of the other fun parts is, unlike the other villainous series we've had, he doesn't know jack shit about this game. Like he knows so little about it because it's just through his daughter playing it, that he knows anything. So he does not remember
Uh-huh.
characters' names. Even though he's been reincarnated, they did not give him the knowledge of the names. Um, and that leads, and all of these things start to lead to, like that's what leads to him sort of taking a different path as the villainous, because he's like, trying to remember names, and he's like using the same tactics he used in like business life of like forgetting client names or something and being like, how can I sort of get around this to like make them introduce themselves or reintroduce
Uh-huh.
themselves or say their name again or something like that, or who can I pawn this off on to like
Right, right.
basically introduce them.
Right. It's
um
like, "Hey, buddy." It's like that sort of thing.
yeah, like at one point he meets the principal and he's like, oh my god, like this girl would absolutely know the principal's name in high class
Yeah.
society. And he's like, and then he just pulls out a like really flowery, like standard, like proper
He's
greeting
using it
of,
speech skill, right? Yeah, exactly.
yeah, of calling him, and then just referring to him as like principal, right? Like instead, like doesn't even use the name to get around it. But
Uh-huh.
everyone's like so, what do you call it? Smoothed over by the greeting that like they don't like question anything like that. There
Right,
are
right,
some
right.
characters that do realize like, oh, Grace is acting differently now, and stuff like that. And then the only other thing is the other big shtick then obviously is he's like, I should probably act the part of a villainous. But his acting the part of a villainous is kind of just like being a not overbearing, but like being like a proper like parent in a way. And
Uh-huh.
so that doesn't actually come across as like villainous behavior at all to anyone anymore.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
because he doesn't act like, like a brat like Grace would have acted.
Right.
Um,
Do they
and yeah,
ever
and so
show, like,
that's leading.
flashbacks of how Grace used to act before she got, like
No.
I
I
guess okay.
assume they'll show. I assume they'll show probably like certain glimpses of it, because the only real flashback of Grace you see is of the daughter playing the game and like first meeting Grace like in the game.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, so they may do stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so this winds up turning into sort of the villainous wooing the main character, Anna Doll. Um, and she winds up doing that because um Kenzabudo's like first introduction to Anadol, like the villainess is supposed to bully her at like the front gate into crime, being like, "Oh, you're the commoner, getting let into our proper magic school. Like, fuck you."
Uh-huh.
Kenzabudo's like parental nature immediately takes over and is like, "Wow, I'm sure your parents are like super happy you got in here. and they
Oh,
must have worked
he
really
starts doing, like,
hard.
counseling essentially, like mental therapy, like
Yeah, he was like, "Wow," he was like, "Wow, that must have been really great. Like your parents must be really happy, and like they must have worked really hard, and that's like, wow, great
Mm.
for you." And like that makes her cry. Um, and then people are like, "Oh my God, Grace made her cry. Like, what the fuck?" But then you see like
Uh,
Anna's, they do like a what do you call it? Like a glowing pink effect, like pulses over her, over Anna, whenever like these moments happen. And so it's very
uh,
clearly like it doesn't tell you, but it's very clearly like Anna's affection is the one that's being raised like over and over again. Um and yeah, there's like a lot of scenes like that where he's like, "Oh, I should do like villainous behavior," but then like his parental nature kind of just autopilots into
right.
raising Anna's affection like over and over again. And then it also does
Oh,
stuff where it's like
okay.
other like yeah, other like bully girls like follow like start following suit and like kind of imitating her behavior in a way. Like there's a scene where he's ordering food at like the school cafeteria. He's like getting the food from the school cafeteria and the other like Ojo-sans are like, you know, arguing with one of the butlers, being like, "Oh, why can't our servants serve us food still on the food on the school grounds?" Or like, "Oh, you have to like, you know, handle yourself." And you know, his shtick is he loved like uh the higher class buffets back in
Oh,
Japan, and he's like,
okay.
"Oh my God, this is
Right.
incredible." And so he just immediately serves himself and you know, properly goes back to the table and is like, you know, remembering ordering ramen in Japan and being like, you know, compliments like tell the boss I said the food was incredible tonight. And like him
Right,
doing that,
exactly.
you know, with the elegant skill translates to like a proper, you know, like, "Oh, give my regards to the chef." And then everyone's taken aback and, you know, the other mean girls like learn a lesson, so to speak, and like try and imitate her because of how popular Grace is.
My
Um,
God.
and yeah, so it's a very fun series. It's gonna be very simple. I expect it's gonna be very straightforward.
Uh-huh.
But it is doing a really fun job of of you know covering all these bases, and I think the performance by both Ichimichi Mao as Grace and Inoue Kazuhiko as Kenzabuto and like the internal is really really fun and really cool.
I have a question. So where I guess this sounds like a slightly big question to consider, but it's like, is this s- series going somewhere, like plot wise, or like, is there a specific direction that it's going towards, or objective that it's going towards, or
Yeah,
is it
see,
like
that's
pretty
what
much episodic?
I think it's gonna be a fairly episodic or mini arc school life type series. It'll probably wrap up with Grace and Anna kind of like platonically being together in
Uh,
a way and like taking down some like evil dragon that attacks the school or some bullshit, right? And working
how's the
together and
evil
like the school
dragon
like coming
gonna
together
happen?
around Grace.
Do they have powers here, or like what?
Yeah, yeah, they have magic. No one's used their
Okay. I see.
magic yet, but it is like described that people do have magic and magic abilities.
Uh,
So it is going to be interesting to see what Kenzabuto pulls out as Grace and how that ties in.
uh,
Um, and yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a sort of thing of the school coming together like under Grace or like around Grace and sort of uplifting the entire school.
right.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I don't think it's going to go anywhere crazy. I don't know if a relationship's really going to develop between Anna and Grace, like anything serious. I doubt it. Um, it'll probably be like I said, like mostly platonic, just because it's like Kenzaburo is still a 52-year-old man who sees
Right,
Anna as like a
exactly.
daughter more than anything.
Uh-huh.
So you know that'll be interesting, and I'm sure they'll use that as like a shtick going forward too.
Right.
But yeah, it's very fun. I didn't mention this. This is from Ajido Studio as well, manga
Okay.
original. Ajido recently did Akirennen, which was quite nice. The audio visuals here are fine. Um, I will say they do use wider shots sometimes with characters in the background that don't have faces, a little bit further up than usual than you would hope. A little bit more noticeable than you would expect, but not terrible overall. And overall, the audio visuals are very very fine, right? Like they're not
Uh,
like nothing incredible has happened. Um,
how are
but
the general like anime slash frames? But it's like as you said,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
they're
I'm
fine.
guessing that
Like they,
most of it's also being properly used in like talking sequences, so they're not like expected to wave their arms around and go to battle
yeah,
and
like
stuff like
talking in
that,
the
right? It's
flashback.
like
Yeah, yeah, like the posing and the bowing and stuff is where they're like, obviously pulling out more frames where they're like, oh, when
you're right, exactly.
Grace does like curtsies and shit like that, and
It's
when
like how
Kenzabuto
some of the
bows.
more recent Magical Girl series, they have their thing where it's very noticeable, where it's like they save some of their budget on just like standard animations, and then obviously Magic Lumiere is like the most not egregious, but it's like the most prominent example of this, where it's like the moment the transformation sequence happens, the money sequence happens, they're like, all right, we gotta pour all the money into here.
Yeah,
It's kind of similar with that in this one, but it's with like the bowing and the etiquette and stuff
yeah,
like
and
that, right?
yeah, and like flipping her hair and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
and
Okay.
then OPED is very fun. The OP is Choose by Cider Girl.
Mhm.
And the visuals are pretty fun. The EP is really really awesome because it's Ichimichi, it's Mao and Kazuhiko Inoue doing
Oh, okay,
Matsukan
okay.
Samba too.
Oh, really? Okay,
Grace
okay,
and
okay.
Grace and Kenzabuto. So it's like a duet between the two. And it's a very very
Nice, nice,
flashy,
nice,
very
nice, nice.
weird party ED between the two of them, and that's I don't know. That's a very very fun one. I think uh,
Mhm.
I think them having fun with the back and forth with the voice actors is kind of like the big highlight for me.
Right, right. Especially since I know that Kazuhiko from what I've seen on like live shows and stuff like that, he's a very kind of like joshing, like jolly old man. Likes making like jokes and kind of like sneaking, like dirty jokes here and there, stuff like that. He's like seems like a very fun guy. So he did enjoy kind of doing this sort of stuff as well. Probably so. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely a
I
very
guess
good time.
overall, yeah. I guess any last words and what will be rating?
Yeah, I think if you want a slight subversion of the, like a different spice to like a villainous series, I think this is a fairly solid one, right? Like
Uh-huh.
this is definitely going to entertain you,
Okay.
and it's definitely going to be a
Uh,
very very easy watch. This is sitting at a 7.5 on Mall. I
uh-huh.
would say that's fine. I would probably give a series like this like a 7 because it's not really going to go anywhere, but it's going to be a fun watch with
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
some pretty funny bits, pretty fun jokes along the way.
yeah,
So like, this is probably like a solid 6.5, 7 to like a strong 7,
yeah.
right?
Like you wouldn't necessarily say it's some sort of like super
Yeah, it's not like
standout. It's not like
an
Isekai
8. It's not
Oji-san.
like an
Yeah,
8 where it's like, yeah,
yeah,
you should probably check this out, like regardless this
yeah. In this
season.
season, you need to check
And
this
it
out.
sure as
It's
shit,
not
yeah.
like
Like
that.
for
But
me,
yeah,
like an 8 is like you have to check this out this season. Like this is definitely something you need to peep.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Regardless of your interest. 9 is like a must watch regardless of the time frame. And a 10
yeah,
is
yeah.
for me is like, like something that's
Something in
in
history,
the
like in the
storybooks.
history
Like this is
books.
like
Yeah,
Hoseki no Kumi
yeah,
type
for anime.
shit, like
Yeah,
something like that. It's
yeah,
like
yeah, exactly.
this is
Yeah,
important. Like
stuff that makes history. Yeah, but yeah. All right, pretty good. Again, I think it'll probably end up being a pretty good romp to watch too. And I know that it got a lot of attention initially on social media when it made the rounds initially with its previews and stuff like that. So, if you guys are interested, please do check it out. Again, the name is Akuyaku Reijou Tensei Ojisan, also known as From Bureaucrat to Villainess. Dad's being reincarnated. So I believe the shortened title is like Tensei Ojisan or something like that. But yeah,
yeah.
please do check it out.